Playoffs. The Suns eliminated the Warriors on Friday, a 111-96 win, securing the final playoff spot in the West. With 38-year-old Steph Curry in the twilight of his career, Golden State now heads into the offseason with several key questions that they need to answer, including at head coach. Steve Kerr's contract has officially expired, and so here is Kerr on what comes next.
I don't know what's going to happen. I still love coaching, but I get it. These jobs all have an expiration date. There's a run that happens, and when the run ends, sometimes it's time for new blood and new ideas and all that. And if that's the case, then I will be just nothing but grateful for the most amazing opportunity any person could have to coach this franchise in front of our fans in the Bay, and to coach Steph Curry, to coach Dre, the whole group. So it may still go on. It may not. I don't know at this point, but we all need to step away a little bit and then reconvene.
Kind of hard to wrap your head around this once dominant dynasty looking different, but nonetheless, here we are. Do you think Steve Kerr has coached his last game at Golden State, Wendy?
Maybe. And I think that's a pretty big step. I don't think I've ever really would have said that to this point. I think there's a couple of things to realize. Number one, it's not like the Warriors have a contract offer on the table and it's just waiting for Steve Kerr's signature. Steve Kerr made the decision to not have negotiations and not discuss it at all until after the season. So even if he was like 100% committed to coming back, they would have to come to an agreement. I just want to point out, he is the highest paid coach in the NBA, reportedly $17 million a year. And so, right now they're not a championship team. And so I don't know if you pay your coach $17 million a year. So you wouldn't think this would come down to straight economics, but I just think I should point that out, that, the cost of this could be a factor on the Warriors side, and we would see if you got into a negotiation. The second thing is, I think the Warriors crossed a Rubicon of sorts in the middle of the season when they had trade discussions with the Bucks about Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it became relatively clear that Draymond Green would have been in that trade if it happened. Now, I don't ever think that it got fully advanced, but Draymond was aware because in his last game before the trade deadline, Draymond went out and had one of the most remarkable press conferences of a year of interesting press conferences from him, where he talked about the reality that he might get traded. And so if the Warriors were willing to think about trading Draymond Green, they're willing to think about a future that doesn't have Steve Kerr. Now, it is poetic to want to have Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green perhaps finish their tenure with the Warriors at the same time. That completes an arc. It makes sense. But it may not be, like Steve alluded to there, it may not be the best way to finish out Steph's career. A new voice might be needed. It might benefit the Warriors and Steph to have a little bit of a curveball when it comes to this last time. It also could be wonderful to not. But I think the fact that there's uncertainty is enough to understand that this is a big moment for the Warriors at this juncture of their history.
Steve Kerr is not going anywhere unless Steph Curry retires, which by his play and whatever else he has said or done provides no indication that he's interested in retiring from the game of basketball. If Steph Curry is there, I believe Steve Kerr is going to stay because Steve Kerr doesn't want to leave him, because Steph Curry doesn't want a new coach at this point in juncture in his career. I just don't believe it. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it. Having said that, let's take a moment to pay homage to Steve Kerr from the standpoint that he's one of the great coaches we have ever seen in NBA history. And even when he had 3 championships on his resume as head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Wendy, I wasn't convinced that was the right thing to say about him until he won that title in 2022. The adjustments that were made, in that series against the Boston Celtics, I just can't say enough about him and his willingness to roll the dice and take chances, and to have faith in the people that he had faith, because it wasn't just about Steph Curry. It was about Draymond. It was about Klay Thompson. It was about various others. And so this is a 4-time champion who's been to an NBA Finals in 6 years. Now, they haven't been back to the playoffs since that championship in 2022. That's 4 years. away from the playoffs. And again, you can pay guys a lot less than $17 million a year to miss the playoffs. We understand that. But there's no question that he knows what he's doing. There's no question that he's an exceptional coach. And there's no question that champions who have produced for him emphatically believe in him. You know, almost to the degree that Michael Jordan believed in Phil Jackson. And so I look at it from that standpoint. And I say, yeah, he's saying what he's saying. But essentially what it really means in my mind is that he will leave when Steph Curry is walking away from the game. That's the impression I've gotten from watching him, listening to him, et cetera, et cetera. He knows that the end is drawing near, that the best days in all likelihood are behind them. But Jimmy Butler did go down with the torn ACL. And you've got to ask yourself, if Jimmy Butler was available and Steph didn't miss 28 games and Porzingis was available, what would they have been? What would they have been able to do? Those are legitimate questions. But in the end, it's just Steph Curry is somebody to love immensely and to have immense amount of faith in. And I think that even though Steph Curry would never want him to do what's not best for him, he's been there for 12 years, etc., and you want him to do what's best for him and his family, if there is a way for Steve Kerr to stay, Steph Curry would be the first in line to say, please stay. And I think that would be more than enough for Steve Kerr to stay on the job and not walk away.
Mm-hmm. So the Warriors missed the playoffs for the second time in the last 3 seasons. I do think it would be a lot to wrap your mind around to have someone from that nucleus, be it Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, stay and they have a different head coach. Go ahead, Stephen A.
I want to say this real quick too with Wendy right here on the air with me. We can't imagine Steph Curry wearing another uniform. We just can't imagine it, you know,
Correct.
Because obviously Joe Lacob would never. I mean, the only way he would ever move Steph Curry is if Steph Curry came to him and said, yo, I want out, which we can't imagine Steph Curry doing. And he won't do that, of course not. But the point that I'm making is that could you imagine if Steph Curry was available? Could you imagine that? You know, we talk stuff about LeBron and how he's approaching free agency and what have you. What if Steph Curry was of the mindset that while I'm here, I still want to compete for championships and we're not necessarily the franchise in position to do that any longer? Could you imagine with his sniper-like ability, the greatest shooter God ever created, could you imagine if he were available, what the Golden State Warriors could get for Steph Curry's services, even at this point in his career? Could you imagine it? I'm just throwing that out there from the standpoint like that's fascinating to me in terms of what would be his availability. Because you got to remember, with most other people, Shay and Wendy, so much is predicated on your athleticism. So everybody knows that's going to dissipate and there's going to be incredible slippage ultimately as Father Time kicks in. But when you are a shooter, particularly a shooter the likes of which we have never seen before, then guess what? That buys you time as talent is around you. Wait a minute. All I got to do is get this dude a sliver of space to launch from 20, 30, 40 feet, and this brother could do his thing. Could you imagine the amount of teams that would be looking to get the services of Steph Curry? That would be fascinating material for television for weeks on end.
It would be. But there's a reason that's never the rumor mill. It's always who can Steph Curry attract to Golden State, never where is Steph Curry is going to go, right? Coming up here.
Joe Lacob ain't trying to do that.
That's right. Can Ant-Man save his team from going down 2-0 to Jokic and the Nuggets? Stay tuned to hear where Stephen A. stands on that. More First Take after this.